Good evening. If we could all please rise for the pledge. Agenda, Town of Marlborough Planning Board, July 6, 2026, regular meeting, 7 p.m. Approval of minutes for June 15, 2026. We have a public hearing for 40 Western Avenue. We have Buttermilk Falls Spa Expansion and Pollock 39 Main Street for a site plan. We're removing Sheldon Properties. Nobody was able to come tonight. We have NJNL Properties for a sketch. After we're done here, we're going to have special topics, discussion on local water revitalization, which is the WAF assessment form, and a site plan for farming operations. Next deadline will be Friday, June 10th, and next scheduled meeting will be Monday, July 20th. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of June 15th?
I make that motion.
Thank you, Fred. Second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Nick. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So we did have a question on the agenda. Going forward, when we don't have a preliminary conference, we're going to remove that from the agenda. And 40 Western Avenue?
Can I?
Yes, go ahead,
I have
Cindy.
an announcement.
Oh, go ahead.
I attended the Ulster County Climate Emergency Preparedness Program, which was offered up at Ulster County, and I would like to put down 4 hours of training for attending that. And briefly, I just want to let the board know that I have information with me if anybody's interested in taking a look at it. But basically, there were 2 items that were pertinent to Marlborough. One was the concerns about wildfire as something that our community really has to take a look at. And as a planning board, as we move forward, we can think about, as people are building, making suggestions in certain areas not to put too much vegetation around the house, and make sure that proper fire code safety provisions are followed and adhered to. And then the other thing is the concerns about rain, and it's not so much flooding, but the fact that because climate has changed in a way that now we get a large amount of water at one time, it's all the more important to try to protect your wetlands because they kind of work as a sponge to soak it up, and you don't get all the runoff and the damage that's done by that. So those were the 2 takeaways that I thought that I could bring back to our planning board. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Cindy. Let me read this first. The meeting tonight is to conduct of town business by the planning board. The public is invited to participate at all items marked on the agenda public hearing. During that segment of the meeting, if you have a question or comment for the chairman and the board, please raise your hand, wait to be acknowledged, please state your full name, and limit your remarks to 3 minutes. Thank you for your anticipated cooperation. Hi, sir. State your name and...
So Ken Lytle, representing 40 Western Avenue, LLC.
Okay. And what are you doing?
So we're here before the board tonight. It's an existing building located along Western Avenue. Has existing water and sewer tied into the town facilities. There's an existing salon that the owner uses actually for the upstairs area and a small apartment. And they're looking to put a small office downstairs in the lower floor for himself. We've got the letters back from the county. We've addressed all of Pat's comments. It's a very simple site plan, not changes to the outside. They wanted to add some handicap designations to the site. It's pretty much a simple site.
Wonderful. How many did you send out?
So 63 out, 42 in.
Wonderful. Thank you. If you give those to our planning board secretary. So we have a public hearing. Is there anybody who would like to speak on this tonight? Is there anybody who would like to speak? Is there anybody who would like to speak on 40 Western Avenue?
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, we have that from Nick.
I'll second that.
Nick to close.
I just like to say the building looks fantastic when you drive by it. Just want to give a compliment to you guys. I go to the high school every day. It looks great driving by it. Everything. Great job. Nice curb appeal. Thank you.
I'll let him know, thank you.
Thank you.
Hannah, do you have a resolution for us?
Mr. Chairman, I have prepared a resolution and just a couple of notes. I think we've already discussed this. This was a type 2 action, so we didn't need to do any further seeker. And we received comments from the Ulster County Planning Board with a finding of no county impact, and also received some feedback from the Department of Public Works that it had no jurisdiction over the project, but it did have a recommendation that the parking layout be reevaluated to ensure sufficient room for vehicle maneuvering. I think that may already have been addressed, but I included as a condition of approval confirmation from Pat's office that there would be sufficient room for maneuvering in the parking lot. And then I did also go through, as part of this resolution, and for the board to adopt as part of the approval. Usually we've been including this as part of the resolutions of approval, but I think we'll be addressing the waterfront program at the end of this meeting and kind of how you'd like the procedure to go in the future. But I've included those policies, finding that each of the 13 policies is not approved, compliance. The action is consistent with the following policies.
Okay, thank you. Pat, do you have anything?
We have no outstanding comments, and Hannah touched on all our comments as she went through her discussion.
Wonderful. So, application of 40 Western Avenue LLC as owner and applicant for site plan approval. Resolution of approval by the Town of Marlborough Planning Board, July 6, 2026. Nick offered the following resolution, which was seconded by John. I know. I was just waiting for you. Who moved its adoption? Whereas 40 Western Avenue LLC, the owner and the applicant, has applied for site plan approval of real property located at 40 Western Avenue in the town of Marlborough, New York, 12542, identified as tax parcel 108.12-2-45, located in the C1 zoning district, to add a second commercial business inside the existing structure. So be it further resolved, in accordance with the local waterfront revitalization, the planning board has determined that the action is consistent with the following policies: fosters a pattern of development in the waterfront area that enhances the community character, preserves open space, makes efficient use of infrastructure, makes beneficial use of waterfront location, and minimizes adverse effects of development. Marlborough, it further resolved that the planning board grants site plan approval and authorizes the chairman of the planning board to stamp and sign the approved site plan upon the completion of the following conditions: payment of all municipal fees and consultants' expenses of the planning board pursuant to DPW recommendation, confirmation in writing from the planning board engineer consultant that the modified parking layout provides sufficient room for safe vehicle maneuvering. Be it resolved that pursuant to code 155-331K, site plan approval shall be void if construction is not started within 1 year and completed within 4 years of the date of the final site plan approval. Jen, will you pull the board?
Chairman Jensen.
Yes.
Member Lanzetta.
Yes.
Member LaFaro.
Absent?
Member Callow.
Yes.
Member Lamella.
Yes.
Member Fazo.
Yes.
Thank you very much. You're done. All right. Anybody here for 40 Western? No, you're not here. I'm sorry. What am I doing? Highland Solar. Anybody for Highland Solar?
I think this is just going to be administrative, so we can proceed in the absence of the applicant on this.
Okay.
And I can discuss it a little bit if you'd like to hear
Go ahead.
why we're doing this. So as you recall, the planning board has already approved this project, and in order to obtain certain financing, I believe, Highland asked us to make sure that we have already, same thing with the waterfront program, made those consistency findings. And so this resolution that you have before you just describes the project, says that an approval was already granted, and then goes through those 13 different policies to find consistency with those 13 policies under Code Section 99.7I 1 through 13. And then after making those findings, ratifies and reaffirms its prior findings in the negative declaration and the resolution of approval, which were adopted January 6th of 2025.
Okay. Pat, do you have anything?
Thank you. The submission letter that they submitted June 13th identified that a revised stormwater pollution prevention plan was prepared. We did not receive that, and there are minor site plan changes in their cover letter that identify the access road serving the southern array, shifting slightly to the south. 2 concrete equipment pads have been reduced in size, bioretention basins treating. The equipment pads have been modified. The detention pond shape has been adjusted. So we're going to need to see that stormwater pollution prevention plan and sign off on that prior to the map being signed. Okay, that's new.
This is new to me. I don't recall seeing those changes, and so
We haven't seen them. The cover letter identified them, so I just
Can we put that as a,
hopefully these will be minor enough changes that it won't actually change the impacts. And so
most likely they can be field changes, but we don't have the document.
So once we find out what the actual changes will be, then perhaps it would be appropriate to then ratify the board's prior findings. So in that case, you could proceed with this finding as to the local waterfront revitalization program policies, and then hold off on ratifying, or you could say that you ratify the findings as to that prior plan, but withhold any determinations as to these changes until we know actually what those changes are. Retention, I mean, I don't know.
thoughts, Cindy?
Do we even have to move forward? I mean, can we just put that on the back burner until we get the changes?
I think it would be appropriate to make these findings as to your prior approvals, because then if these end up being, minor enough that no additional changes to the approvals need to take place, then you already have this completed.
Okay.
So we can put that as a condition?
You can proceed with this as written, but I would say we could add a condition from the dais that says something like, these further changes as of July, what is it? The June 13th changes have not been reviewed, and the board withholds approvals as to those possible changes.
I'm fine with that. Is everybody okay with that, Nick?
I think so.
John, you okay? Fred? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to read.
Okay, so with the board's approval, I will say, with the condition that changes proposed as of July, what did I just say? June 13th, 2026 will be reviewed, and should any additional approvals need to be made, those will be taken in the future.
Okay. So Resolution Organic Valley LLC, as owner of Highland 201 Solar LLC, as applicant to ratify special permit and site plan approval. July 6, 2026, Cindy offered the following resolution and was seconded by Fred. Whereas Organic Valley LLC as property owner and Highland 201 Solar LLC as developer and applicant applied to the Town of Marlborough Planning Board for special permit and site plan approval for a project known as Highland 201 Solar at 206 Milton Turnpike in the town of Marlborough, New York, tax parcel number 95.4-3-7.210, 95.4-3-7.110, and 95.4-3-7.22 for the use of ground-mounted large-scale solar energy systems pursuant to Section 155.32.2b of the Code of the Town of Marlborough, whereas the improvements associated with the project are depicted on the site plan prepared by Landigan Engineering, Environmental Survey, Landscape Architecture, and Geology, DPC, dated August 30th, 2024, and bearing the last revision date of November 15th, 2024. Whereas a review of the Type 1 action under State Seeker was undertaken by the Planning Board as lead agency, and duly noticed public hearing was held on December 2nd, 2024, at which the Planning Board received verbal and written comments from the public regarding the project, and the public hearing was duly closed. Therefore, be resolved that the town board finds that the project is consistent with the following LWRP policies. Policy 1, the project fosters a pattern of development in the waterfront area that enhances the community character, preserves open spaces, makes efficient use of infrastructure, makes beneficial use of the waterfront location, and minimizes adverse effects of development. Policy 2, the project preserves historical resources of the waterfront area. Policy 3, the project enhances visual quality and protects scenic resources throughout the waterfront area. Policy 4, the project minimizes loss of life, structure, and natural resources from flooding and erosion. Policy 5, the project protects and improves water quality and supply in waterfront area. Policy 6, the project protects and restores the quality and functions of the waterfront area ecosystem. Policy 7, the project protects and improves air quality in the waterfront area. Policy 8, the project minimizes environmental degradation in the waterfront area from solid waste and hazardous substances and waste. Policy 9, the project provides for public access and recreational use of waterfront waters, public lands, and public resources of the waterfront area. Policy 10, the project protects water development, uses and promotes site of new water-dependent use on suitable locations. Policy 11, the project promotes sustainable use of living aquatic resources in the waterfront area. Policy 12, the project protects agricultural land in the waterfront area. And Policy 13, the project promotes appropriate use and development of energy and mineral resources. Be it resolved that the Planning Board therefore ratify and restates its findings contained in the negative declaration and resolution on approval adopted January 6, 2025, and readopts all findings and conditions for approval contained herein. Jen?
Chairman Johnson.
Yes.
Member Lanzetta.
Yes.
Member Callow.
Yes.
Member Lamella.
Yes.
Member Pazzo.
Yes.
Okay. That's done. Now we'll go to Buttermilk Falls Spa's expansion and 39 Main Street. Is anybody here? No? And we'll move on. Sheldon Properties has been removed. NJNL Properties, come on down. Hello again. Go ahead and tell us about the project.
Okay. The
You'll
project,
speak into the microphone for me
all right.
and tell our stenographer who you are. No, you were on.
Okay, how's that? Right now, the project essentially involves tax lots 108.2-7-32.1 and 108.2-7-27.1. Combining these two parcels creates approximately 18 acres of land, of which we are proposing a 5-lot subdivision. The tax parcel 108.2-7-32.11 contains 15 acres, has 2 single-family homes, a barn, and a secondary accessory building, while tax parcel 108.2-7-27.1 contains only a garage. We are proposing to combine the 2 parcels, subdivide them into 5 new residential parcels, and convert the use of the accessory building into a 3-bedroom residence on its own lot. Lots 1 through 3 of the proposed lots will each have an existing residence. Currently, they use a combination of well, water, town water, and septic disposal, some of which will have proposed improvements to either of these services. All 3 lots will utilize Western Avenue as their frontage. Lot 3 will utilize a proposed 20-foot wide driveway and utility easement for ingress and egress. The legal frontage for Lot 3 will be via a 25-foot wide portion of their property running northwesterly and then northerly along the easterly one-half of an existing 50-foot wide strip running northerly to Western Avenue. The legal frontage for Lot 4 will be via a 25-foot wide strip running northerly along the westerly half of said 50-foot wide strip to Western Avenue. Lot 4 will have a proposed 5-bedroom residence with either town water, private well, and a septic disposal system. Ingress and egress to Lot 4 will be via a driveway constructed along said 25-foot wide strip. Finally, Lot 5, which contains a garage, will have a proposed 5-bedroom residence with town water and a septic disposal system. While its legal frontage will be along Western Avenue, ingress and egress will be via a proposed 25-foot driveway and utility easement shared with Lot 4. I think that pretty much sums it up.
Thank you. Pat? Yeah, this project is a change once again. It came before us originally with the 1-story structure fronting on Western Avenue on Lot 1 as a school institutional use. That's been removed, and now we have a 5-lot subdivision. So I think we need an updated application to address the most recent submission, identifying what Mr. Miller just told us. So we need an updated application, updated EAF for this concept plan. There are numerous variances that are going to be required. Some of those were noted during the initial application. I've identified in my comment 1, Lot 1 needing a front yard variance where 35 feet is required, 1.17 feet is provided. Lot 2 requires a front yard variance where 0 is provided, 35 is required. Lot 2 needs a side yard variance, 11.7 feet is provided where 35 feet is required. And Lot 3 requires a side yard variance, 15.8 feet is provided where 35 is required. So that'll need referral to the ZBA. We're suggesting the building inspector's gatekeeper letter be received before the project. We'll need to see provisions for potable water and sanitary sewer for each of the lots. As was mentioned, some of them will have wells, some of them are going to connect to the town's water supply. But more importantly, individual subsurface sanitary sewer disposal systems need to be depicted on each of the lots, independent of the lot lines. I don't know where those systems are now, but there'll have to be some research to identify where the existing systems are, and then there are proposed systems shown on a couple of the lots. A long form EAF should be submitted with the revised application. County DPW will be an involved agency for the driveway locations. We're suggesting that site distance be provided at each of the driveways for their review. Lot 2 depicts 4 proposed parking spaces, and Lot 1 depicts 8 proposed parking spaces. And I wasn't sure why there was that many parking spaces depicted for single-family residences. I don't know if that
That was left over from before. We'll remove that.
Access and maintenance agreements will be required for all shared common driveways, which there are many. The easement information should be submitted to Hannah for review. You noted that Lot 3 is going to have a proposed easement over an additional tax lot 31.2. And I don't know if they're party to this application or if that easement exists in its current form. So that should be addressed. It looks like there's a shared septic depicted on Lot 1 and 2, which will need to be addressed.
I don't think,
Okay, so that doesn't need to be shown. I just saw what looked like a septic.
And also, existing is all town road, there is no else.
Everything's
On these existing buildings, they're all town water.
Okay.
So the town water supply should be shown, whether or not there needs to be easements for that. If it crosses other lots, then now's the time to provide easements for those existing utilities. So all those utilities should be depicted. If there's easements required, they should be identified, and the existing septic systems should be depicted. That's where we're at. I don't know if the board has this as a concept right now, if they have any additional questions, but I do think we need those applications in the AR.
I agree. And just state your name for the stenographer. both.
Jonathan Millen,
Okay,
licensed land surveyor.
Nicholas Crapalucci.
thank you. Did we do a preliminary conference on this?
Yes.
We did with a commercial component. Board, do we need to do a preliminary on this again? No? Nick?
I don't think so.
Cindy? Okay, so we're going to waive the preliminary conference on that. So you're going to provide a new application, right?
Correct.
We wanted a long form
Yes.
for seeker. So
Yes.
you'll do part 1,
Yes.
and you'll be able to answer all these questions that was presented. Did you get a copy of what Pat?
Yes, I think it was emailed to us.
You did? You got an email? Okay, wonderful. Hannah? What?
We'll receive a new gatekeeper letter with the absence of the Learning Center on there.
Yeah, that was my suggestion.
I think that would be-
The changes in the lot layout, I would let our code enforcement see if we have any concerns.
Okay. So we can get that from Mr. Corcoran, that'd be great.
Yes.
Okay?
And then once we have the updated materials and the long form EAF, the board can consider circulating for lead agency. And then once you determine your lead agency status, then we can consider a referral to the ZBA, at which time, of course, the ZBA can begin reviewing, but the board should, or whoever ends up being lead agency should undertake seeker to completion before any final approvals are made, even on whatever variances are required.
Correct. And Western Avenue is a county road, right? And now you stated that, is it Lot 1 and Lot 2?
Right.
And Lot 5 are all town water?
No, lot 1, 2, and 3.
Lot 1, 2, and 3?
5 is also.
And 5.
Yes.
So 4?
4 is just where we,
4 is the only one that's going to require water.
where we want to put the house is really far away from the Western Avenue.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's possible to allow that.
Or down water.
Any questions, John, Cindy?
Yeah.
Nick? Go ahead.
Hi.
Go ahead, Cindy.
On Lot 1, the thing that is noted as a one-story residence, that is not a one-story residence.
I believe that's proposed.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's listed on the map as a one-story residence, which at this time it is not. It was, yeah, I understand that. But that was a garage utility accessory building. The use would be changed if it becomes a residence. Wouldn't that require a use variance?
In this zone, what zone are we in?
It's in a residential zone.
I think
No,
it's zoned
I think it's an
residential.
ag residential.
No, it's an R1. All of it is in, the entire property is in R1.
Oh, okay. But even so, it's an accessory building that was non-conforming. And now they're proposing that it becomes a residence.
Which is the important, other than the bulk requirements that they don't meet.
It's a change of use, though, isn't it?
Well, they're here for that, to create a permitted lot. Right now, there's a lot of things that don't conform on this that they have to go to the ZBA for.
I think the use is residential and it will remain residential. Right, so you're saying the structure is a change of use?
Yeah,
It's
the
still a
cha-
residential structure technically.
No, it was a garage.
It's a garage right now, but it's proposed to be a residential structure, which would be a permitted use.
It's not a garage right now. It's not a garage.
Was a solar requirement?
We got a building permit, renovation. I have a CO. It's been inspected. It's an accessory for personal use right now.
So we'll find, in the gatekeeper letter, this should be addressed, what the status is of that structure.
Okay, because it came to us originally, the gatekeeper letter said that it was an approved use, and yet we found out that it wasn't because the understanding of the property needing to be subdivided in order for it to be an accessory use on that was necessary, and that's what brought this whole project in originally. Secondarily to that, in order to comply with that, to be able to be used as the structure that they were hoping to use it as.
That's gone.
Right, but that wasn't approved, so there was no
Yeah,
use.
but that's what called our attention to the fact that that couldn't be used for any use like that unless it was subdivided.
Okay.
Because there were too many other residents on
Right.
that lot.
So now it's
Yeah.
going to be
Yeah,
subdivided.
but now you want to make that a
Residence.
house,
That's correct.
which it was not a house before, and it was not conforming before. So that's why I'm wondering why that isn't a change of use.
I think usually the rule about nonconformities is that if it's becoming more conforming, it's permitted because it's in the town's interest that things tend to be more in compliance with the code than they were in the past. So I think in this instance, it sounds like at the very least it would be more conforming than the learning center, but what it will depend on is what it ends up actually, I don't recall
Do you remember what it looked like a year ago?
building permit as to the.
I'm not talking about the fact that you certainly did a wonderful job redoing it. I'm just wondering that I just want to make sure that we're following the correct laws. And, the reason one of the reasons I ask is because you wouldn't necessarily have to subdivide that lot 2 and lot 1 because we have a new ADU law that would enable you to keep that one lot and still be able to use that as residential then and rent that out, which would also be more conforming.
So how much taxes would the town make on that versus it being its own residence?
I don't know. I'm just like I said,
I'm not disagreeing with you, but we're trying to make everything here
yeah.
legal and conforming and for the future. So like that's going to be on the taxes as a single family home versus an ADU. Like, you know what I mean? Like what would we want for the town? It's better.
Well, I just want to make sure that we're not changing the use. And that's,
That's why having a new gatekeeper letter will inform us as to whether any additional approvals would need to be made on that, or whether there is a change of use, how the code would deal with that, which I can definitely review prior to our next submission date.
Right.
okay.
Nick, do you have something?
No, I think Cindy covered pretty much everything there on that one.
John?
Yeah.
Fred?
I'm good. I just want to give you a compliment. The building on 9W, the old Tops TV building, and you got to be a certain age to remember that. Looks fantastic. A great facelift on that. So thank you.
Put a shot up, we can keep buying old buildings and fix them up in town.
I'm all for it.
Thank you. set?
I think we're all set, so I think you got your marching orders, and you have your marching orders, what we need to get, and thank you very much. So let's, we're going to move right into special topic discussion, local water revitalization program and water assessment form to be added to future applications. I think you're good. You're done. You're welcome. That's fine. Hannah?
Hello. We're looking at, okay, yes. So recently, we have had a couple applications come up. The ZBA has discussed this as well. It turns out that the waterfront area, and I believe we've discussed this at the planning board as well, the waterfront area in the town is basically the whole town, not just the area along the river as one might expect. Right. So because of that, there have been instances where we're later in the process than maybe it was intended in the code that this be reviewed. It's not part of seeker, but it's kind of adjacent to seeker, and that type 1 actions and unlisted actions that are within the waterfront zone are subject to exactly what we just did 2 times now, which is those 13 policies. The board, before making a determination, not a seeker determination, but a determination on the application, has to find that those 13 policies are in conformance with the project or with the action. So in that regard, when an applicant comes in, what they're supposed to be doing is filling out the WAF, the waterfront assessment form, and because that's not included in any of our applications, that's something that's kind of lost in the shuffle, and all of a sudden we're much later in the process saying, hey, by the way, can you submit the WAF? So my suggestion to the supervisor and to Jen was maybe we just include this WAF with our applications so that anytime we do find out, yes, this is an unlisted or a type 1, odds are it's going to be in the waterfront area, and we can already have the form prepared so that we can go through those 13 policies sooner rather than later.
John, who decides what the waterfront district actually is, and why does it extend out that far? Because can we just put that line like the eastern side of 9W? It's an imaginary line.
Who determines that?
Well, it's in conformance with the state. The state has a waterfront area, and I believe there was a committee that went through this process that can adopt the waterfront. And so when they did that, they adopted the waterfront area that already had been established by the state, which is how I did a bunch of research on this. All of the other municipalities that also have adopted this program follow the guidance, the area of the state waterfront areas. So just in the case of Marlborough, it happens to be almost all of the town.
I mean, I could see 1,000 feet from the Hudson River.
I'm sure it's based off of miles, right? I'm assuming, right?
I think it's watershed.
I think it's
And
watershed.
the watershed? Yeah,
Because
it might be.
in some towns, it's very close.
I think it was a result of the watershed committee.
Yeah.
adopting that, which made it added to the state.
Well, I'd like to move forward that we,
It used to be just along the river where the state has it
yeah.
assigned. I think the town had a committee who did a watershed revitalization study and added.
No, we
I
didn't.
did look at the map.
No.
Yeah.
We
And so
didn't
if-
have a waterfront.
If the suggestion was that be modified, it would be a very heavy lift and like years worth of reanalyzing that.
Gotcha.
I think it was the predominance of the agricultural districts that had another important aspect to it too. With the watershed and the agricultural districts, they felt like it was best to include the entire area pretty much outside of the Bailey's
state.
Gap.
The state, you mean?
Well, the state worked with the the LURP committee and the town's planner along with doing the master plan update.
Yes.
And it was decided that this would work best to identify the entire area.
And not all towns have codified the LWRP. It's a state program ultimately that the towns then have the availability or the ability to adopt. and Marlborough did that because it's so environmentally conscientious, which was, in my mind, a very good thing to do.
And the flip side is that enables us to get higher points when we apply for grants. So, and it helps us to protect, again, our agricultural areas.
I'm okay with just putting it part of our application process. And let's just have the applicant fill it out.
As long as we have this in mind and we go through this, we don't want to end up in a place where we're trying to do it after the fact. That's really not, is the least ideal option.
Right.
So I think having it as part of the application, and that can be hopefully in the forefront of our minds, and get that done at the beginning of the, and like I said, type 2 actions for seeker don't have to do this. But once we decide that it's a type 1 or an unlisted, this should be, in my mind, the first thing we address.
Okay, so
So all you need to vote on is whether you'd like to include this document as part of the application materials.
can I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. To what Hannah said. Okay, so that's part of the application for part 1, type 1 and unlisted action.
Correct.
Okay. Now we're going to move into the site plan for farming operations. We received a letter from our town clerk dated June 23rd, 2026. Pursuant to section 155-49 of the town code, the town board transmits to the planning board a proposed local law amending various portions of chapter 155 zoning of the Marlborough Town Code. So we have 30 days to respond. And Hannah, you're up.
So this has gone through a couple different iterations and stems from, oh, thank you. Did you send this to me? Okay. Okay, so I believe this was the second iteration of this law. The town board had made a couple changes to an initial draft that I had prepared in response to the planning board's recommendation that a minor site plan process be undergone for certain events. So what this does, I think importantly, is that despite the fact that the town had already been proceeding with addressing agricultural type applications without site plan review, this codifies that and makes it more clear, I think, that certain agricultural applications that are within one of the agricultural districts, either the state, the county, or the RAG 1 agricultural zones, are not required to go through site plan processes, but that certain event uses for, they call them farm venue events, and with a very particular definition in here that I think the planning board should review, will require a minor site plan review. And maybe you recall, we already have a minor site plan section in the code that we've used for bed and breakfast, short-term rental, and I believe one other thing that I'm forgetting off the top of my head. And so what we did is just plugged in farm venue events into that minor site plan section in the code, and then reiterated, and the reason, of course, that we're doing this and being so conscientious of site plan review on this is because we know that under the Ag and Markets Law, agricultural uses for farm operations that are located in one of those agricultural districts can't be unreasonably limited by regulations, by the town, by the law. So the reason we're being conscientious here in particular on minor site plan is that very purpose, that there will be some review by the town. Even though it's a minor site plan review, it is still a constraint technically. So I added an additional section, which I would like to find so that I can point it out to you.
Is that Exhibit A?
What?
Exhibit A?
No, I'm looking at section 9.
Okay.
Subsection, so it's going to be 155-3103A, which for farm venue events, this is in addition to the other requirements of minor site plan review, the planning board's minor site plan review of a farm venue event pursuant to this section that it references above shall be further limited to the following public health and safety impacts: ingress and egress, on-site parking and traffic circulation, off-site parking and shuttle arrangements, if any, potable water, sanitary facilities, solid waste management, emergency vehicle access, fire and life safety, lighting, hours of operation, outdoor amplified sound, uniform code compliance for structures permanent or temporary. And the purpose of that section goes back to the Ag and Markets Law, which is that you can't have restraints, unreasonable restraints on those certain farm operations unless they're tied to a health and safety reason. So this is saying that the planning board's review of minor site plan, distinct from the other minor site plan, review process for bed and breakfast and all the rest, you have to make your findings based on these health and safety reasons. So I think it does limit your review, but I think appropriately so under Ag and Markets. And ultimately, I think those are the main sections that I want to point to, but I would say it's particularly important that the planning board, since this was your initial referral to the town board, make sure that this text is what you were envisioning. I can prepare a response letter to the town board, but I think that making sure that this text, and it is you were right, Steve, it is at Exhibit A, is that correct?
Yes. Now, they kept in public hearing?
They kept the public hearing.
Yes.
And that's the same for all minor site plan.
I know they wanted to make sure that the public had an opportunity to speak for or against.
So there are a couple definitions, and then these additions, there are certain ones in section 155.12, which are just plugging in farm venue events as an accessory use in the use table. I do point out that it's the R1 district, the RAG1 district, and I believe the HD district, which have agricultural uses as a principal use. So in each of those zones, the minor site plan review for these accessory use farm venue events will be applicable.
Okay. Nick, got anything on this?
Well, I mean, with ags and markets, I think the town still, we still need to have a say, but I think what we have written here is, kind of appropriate, at the most, right, Cindy? I think we're on the same page with this topic.
Yeah, I have a couple things that I wanted to raise specifically.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, you go. You have a lot written
I
down.
thought the definitions, referencing the Ag and Market Law were real good. I think it's real important that we do that. The right to farm law is real specific on that too, so I think they complement each other. I do think that that this should be a special use in the R1. Special use requires us to look more closely at the impacts because it's the first use is residential. So in that case, I do think that should be a special use. But in the HD and the Ag, I think the typical expedited site plan review is good. But you will notice in section 9 where you have for the minor plan review, you have farm venue events located in RAG1 or an agricultural district. There's no reference to R1 or HD there, so I think that would have to be put in there as well.
I was trying to encompass more the Ag and Markets Law, which says that those farm operations within an agricultural district, and I wanted to encompass both agricultural districts that are county and state and the town's agricultural district, which is the RAG1 zone.
So you put that in as part of the explanation of the definition, kind of?
Of where Ag and Markets will apply.
Okay, but if you're in, but I think you'd have to also put in R1 and HD as well.
I understand the confusion.
By not mentioning those areas, that might be looked at as being not in those zoning areas.
And it's a good thing that you pointed this out because the protections that are provided for those agricultural uses in agricultural districts don't apply to non-agricultural districts. So in the HD zone and the R1 zone, minor site plan review wouldn't apply under this law. Because
Well,
it
it would
be-
if they're in an agricultural district.
They could be. They
Yeah,
could
and
be.
we do have HD, we do have properties in HD and R1 that are in agricultural districts.
Which is why it's an or in this case. So it could be in the RAG 1 zoning district or an agricultural district, which could encompass potentially properties either in the HD or the R1 zones.
But the venue events might not necessarily take place, like,
The farm venue events
you could
will-
be in an RA district and not be, and not, you would still qualify, you would have to be a farm to do a farm venue event, right?
Farm venue
Okay.
events only are tied to the farm use, which is
Yes.
why they're only going to end up permitted in the HD, the R1, or the RAG 1 zones, because those are the only zones that allow agricultural uses as a principal permitted use. And this event use would be accessory only to that principal ag use.
Okay, so I would reiterate that I still think a special use in a residential one would allow us to then take into account the additional impacts on the close, it's a much closer residential community, and the impacts could have a bigger effect than if they're out in the rural ag district.
So not removing the agricultural use as a principal permitted use in the R1 zone, but just requiring that the accessory use of events there too would require a special use permit
Correct.
instead of minor site plan review.
In addition to the minors, as part as the minor site plan review, they get a special use permit because we have to take into account the additional impact to the adjoining community.
I think it would require a reworking of the definition of the farm venue events, because we couldn't then say that they're an accessory use to an agricultural use across the board. That wouldn't be true, because in that instance, we would have to remove the principal permitted agricultural use in the R1 zone.
Well, do you understand my concern? If the zone is primarily supposed to be residential, and we do know that there are some agricultural districts within that area, we still need to find a way to give that the adequate review that would be different than we would in either the HD or the rural ag.
My only issue is that the principal agricultural use is already allowed as a principal permitted use. And so that implies that agricultural uses are a permitted use in the zone already. So the finding that they would be a special use instead is a finding that it's not principally permitted in the zone, but that it can be allowed under certain circumstances. So we would have to remove the principal permitted agricultural use, I think, entirely from the zone to show that it's not an agricultural nature already in that zone, despite the fact that residential is kind of principal.
Okay. Then I also, as far as for the narrative description for the proposed project, I'm on page 8, which is section 9, going back to the list of things that are required for the application.
You said page 8?
Yeah, I have it.
The bottom of
No,
page
I don't
8.
know what that is. I'm just looking at the code, the proposed code. It's for the minor site plan application requirements submission.
Yeah, this is what exists now. Anything that's not underlined already exists in the code.
Yeah, I'm saying that I would like to add proof of inclusion in the agricultural district, the compliance. I don't see anything there that, the site zoning, the name of the businesses, all of those things, but I don't see where you have to provide proof that you are actually included in an agricultural district.
Perhaps that could be included at sub D, which just requires that other information, documentation, material required elsewhere in respect to each of the uses, short-term rental, bed and breakfast, home occupations, and farm venue events. It seems like that would be an additional thing that would come under.
Okay, I didn't know if we needed to spell that out, that they need to give us proof that they are in an agricultural district.
I think that makes perfect sense.
So, okay. Yeah, the last thing. I'm not sure why a farm has to be 10 acres. Because that actually, we could run into trouble with that, with ag and markets, because you could have a greenhouse on 6 acres and be in an ag district and be making have a farm.
I agree completely, and this is something that I have looked at before, and it's interesting because in the RAG 1 zone, there isn't that limitation that farms have to be 10 acres. I believe it's just in the R1 zone that's part of the code that a principal, is it the principal permitted agricultural use has to be only if there's 10 acres available, and that's not even required in the HD zone. So there is some difference there from the original code, even as it stands now, and I think should be something that's pointed out to the town board.
Yeah, because I'm not sure it's defensible. Because it, well, I'm just saying if we're trying to follow ag and market does not put a acreage limit on a farm. Because you could have you could be.
I thought it was a 10-acre limit, but isn't it you have to not profit, but you have to produce $10,000
I think
for
that's
so many years to be considered ag.
There are different definitions in this ag and markets section and in the section that has to do with taxation, and I think the taxation section does have an acreage minimum, but in terms of this area of that same law, it's not. The acreage limitation doesn't exist. And I think in the taxation section, I think it is 7.5.
I thought it was more than that. Because, I mean, you'd have everybody in a Ag R1, I'll start growing curtains.
Well, but that's,
you know what I mean?
But the reality is that's what's happening more and more. There's like these micro farms where people are producing particular items like mushrooms or something on smaller acreage, and they're making money, and they're a farm. So ag and markets chooses not to say that they can't be a farm because it's not based on acreage.
A farm overlay?
There's districts.
Districts, yeah.
Well, there's different we have our own town zoning district,
Right.
and then we have the county and state agricultural districts.
Mm-hmm.
And those are put in by people, that submit them, and then they're okayed. And then there's the taxation, the agricultural dispensations, that you get, that you have to have certain amounts of money that you make off of the property. And apparently you have to have acreage for those?
I believe you do.
But
right?
those limitations aren't relevant for the conversation about whether it's
That's not
a
for the-
reasonable restriction
Yeah.
set by the town.
Yeah.
So I think pointing out to the town board that this is a concern for consideration, I think is appropriate. You don't have to decide what to do about it, but I
Yeah.
think flagging that is
Yeah,
appropriate.
yeah. And I just don't think it's something that if somebody brought it up, if somebody sued the town over it, and you had to go to ag and markets wouldn't say that you had to have 10 acres. That's all I'm pointing out.
So we have 30 days on this. Do we have to
When did we get it?
we got this on June 23rd.
So
The
we,
public hearing, I think, is the 13th on this.
but I believe, well, we'll see what the town board does, but we have, until June, July, what is it?
July 23rd.
What's today? Oh, no, so we still have another meeting. So I would propose that I draft up a response and have that for the board members to look at the next meeting, and then you can vote by motion whether that's the message you want to send.
Why don't you send it to us? Let us look at it, and if there's any comments, we can get them back to you so we can have a final draft.
And then still move at the next
And then
meeting.
still move at the next meeting.
Good.
And
But
I,
let's talk about the Ulster County that you.
that's, oh,
Yeah,
go ahead. I did want to add too, up at the county, they did an advisory opinion that they believe that to further streamline the minor site plan
Oh.
review process.
I did see that, to recommend that the building inspector should have unilateral power to approve.
Yeah, and if perhaps we could do that, we could work that in some way so that for ones that were pretty straightforward on agricultural properties and agricultural districts, that it could be even further streamlined, and then ones that seem to be more complicated, perhaps could be directed towards the planning board. I don't know.
Okay.
Well, you take a look at the suggestion and see if there's any, the bottom line is we're trying to make sure that, you know, for the agricultural districts where our agricultural zoning is, that we try to make this the least onerous possible and have, you know, enough of regulation to make sure that the public is protected, but that the farms don't have to go through a long, expensive site plan review.
I'm just wondering what provision could be put in the code to differentiate whether a event potential accessory use would be subject to minor site plan or just this administrative? Would it be based on acreage? Would it be based on what kind of events or the number of events or the type of property or the type of agricultural use? It could be hard to determine without a hard, these go this path, these go this path. I can try to do something creative.
I don't know. Do you have any ideas?
I have ideas, but my thing is, if you're, I mean, in what we have in here, it's pretty much focusing on weddings. It keeps going back to weddings and rehearsals and parties. How does that different than having public on your farm if they're in your orchards, you're doing U-picks? Or if you, say, have a agricultural building that you turned into, let's say, a tasty room or bar. You know, if you're talking public safety, there's tons of U-picks, right? It's pretty unsafe to have the public walking around in your orchard. So how does that, is that still covered under ags and markets? Or, right, does that have to be under site plan review if you have a farm that has U-picks, or you do different, say, events for Halloween or stuff of that matter? So in here, you see it mostly is focusing on weddings, possibly, or private parties and stuff. So does that, you know, is this going to affect U-picks or a farm stand, or say someone that has a agricultural building where you have a storefront?
This is such a perceptive question, and why I labored so much over this definition
it's,
of farm venue events, because it is a very fine line between what I would call ag tourism,
Sure.
which is like the U-picks, that stuff that has directly to do with the produce or whatever you're producing on the farm, and having people to raise awareness for the agricultural purpose is something that technically is, similar, but it's different and has different kinds of protections under ag and markets too. But I think the way that this was drafted and the way that the town board members discussed it at the previous two meetings was that this would all kind of be, for the same reason you just said, the fact that if people are going on the property, same with U-picks as with other kinds of events, there still is a safety concern. So although ag and market says you can only have reasonable restrictions, the offset of that is if you think that there are going to be health and safety concerns with a U-Pick or whatever kind of event, you have the prerogative and really the duty to make sure that there are certain reviews in place to make sure that the public is safe. So the definition that I crafted for farm venue events tries to cover a variety of different things. Public and private events which involve public access, occupancy, or assembly at the subject property, which could include, and of course I made it broad like that because it could include other things too, like weddings, receptions, rehearsal dinners, private parties, reunions, graduations, corporate events, concerts, ticketed performances, non-ag festivals, and similar reserved, hosted, or commercial gatherings. So if you can think of other things that should go into that, or restrictions or constraints, that would probably be very helpful because I think it is a difficult area of law and the definition in this case is particularly important.
So if I understand it correctly, if you're having anything on your farm and people are there to drink your wine, to eat the pies that you've made with your own peaches, as long as you are making most of it, a good part of the money from your own product, then that's considered a farm operation.
That technically is considered part and parcel of the farm operation, yes.
Yes,
So that's something that is not supposed to be something that we try to control.
But it can if you have health and safety concerns. So even if you're, entering, because it's such a gray area and the threshold is so hard to define, even if you do enter the agricultural tourism area, I think it's very clear based on, and I crafted the minor site plan review so carefully to ensure that the planning board is only reviewing matters that have to do with public safety and welfare. So it should, what I'm trying to say is the town should be protected.
Because, we talk about weddings all the time. We talk about a birthday. Birthday, cake, lighted candles, fire. That has nothing to do with the farm operation.
Yeah, but if they're sitting there drinking the farm wine.
Yeah, but the fire, the opportunity for, you go into a church nowadays, they all have these push-button lights. You don't like candles in churches. Not in the majority of the Catholic churches I was working on. We changed them out to push-button battery candles.
Yeah, but is that because the town told them they had to do that, or is that because their own insurance
It's health and
company
safety.
told them
It's
to
health
do
and-
it?
It's health and safety. That's what it comes down to, it's health and safety.
And
I
these
think-
are
I think
public
what
access.
You've written, I think, is the balance. I think you've identified it.
Well, I think especially, I agree with what Cindy said as far as and I know that the planning board, just like the town board and the town respects ag so much and wants to make it as easy as possible
Yes.
within the realm of safety and conscientiousness for what it is that they're preparing. I don't think anyone is trying to say, let's crack down and make things really difficult. But at the same time, it is very difficult to draft legislation that walks the line and says, yes, there are applications where maybe we don't need planning board review at all. Maybe it's so straightforward that the code enforcement officer should be able to deal with it on his own. But how do you craft a code that provides for that kind of review for the right kinds of applications only? It could be, right, and if you don't have a firm threshold that says these just go to the building inspector and these ones have to go to the planning board, then you're at risk of saying the town is arbitrary because you're just saying, we like so-and-so better, so he just has to do the building inspector review path.
Now, if you are having events on a farm, under what we have written here, do we go to all the farms if they have the public access to it? Does every farm that has public access need to be under review?
If they fall into this definition. And one thing that I did recommend to the town board, the same question came up. I mean, how long do people have to kind of get with the program on this? And there are opportunities for the town to say, applicants have 90 days, 180 days, a year to make sure that they get their application in. In this case, the minor site plan review shouldn't be too onerous, but I think having a transition period that, we're going to get the information out to people we're not going to start enforcing right away. That seems like a matter of fairness, but giving some leeway, a certain number of days, after which point the code will be enforced as written.
Now, does this include, since they talk about public assembly, does this mean if you've got a cooler and you've got people working in the cooler, now you have to come in for a site plan review?
Or with a cooler?
Hmm?
A cooler, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, cold storage or a warehouse or a packing facility where people might have
Right.
employees
It all comes back
inside.
to whether it falls into the definition of farm operation, which I also tried to come up with the definition for and basically mirrors the Ag and Markets Law. If it falls under a farm operation, that's protected. It's only if it comes into this event area where there's going to be public access coming onto the property for these kinds of events is that kind of review required.
What if they do a bar in their building?
A what?
Well, if you're turning an agricultural, something that was deemed agricultural and you change the use, that could be an issue, correct, right? So if you have an agricultural building and,
Like their building, they came to get their site plan.
right, but they had the intentions of that.
Bars, and you don't have like something like that in your definition.
In which case, maybe it's not an event. If they're opening a bar, maybe it's just purely commercial use they're trying to add. So that, I assume, would come more under a normal site plan review?
They're selling their ciders, their own product.
And their wine, yes, yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so,
My understanding is, I understand where the state and agri markets come in on this. I think it's to kind of protect in a sense of, I could say, come buy a farm. I can come buy a farm and I could be deemed agricultural and I could put up an agricultural building and I could do whatever I want. I don't have to get my building code and all that. And then I could say, after I build this agricultural building, I can say, well, now I'm going to put so-and-so inside of this. I'm going to put a bar inside that. So I think that's where this comes to, where maybe people have been catching on. This is not just happening in our town. It's happening locally in different, counties and stuff, where people are, maybe coming from a different area, buying a piece of property. We're going to put up an agricultural building under agricultural because it's much easier to do. And then afterwards say, all right, we're going to have a wedding venue or we're going to put a bar inside. And then you're kind of, I guess, possibly able to get around certain, scrutiny and certain codes. My thing is, for anything in our town, I mean, I hate to say grandfathered in, but there's quite a few businesses, farm businesses, that have been operating at a farm for hundreds of years. And to kind of now all of a sudden to say, well, you can't, or you need to be under review now. Like I said, the grandfather in thing is kind of played out in a sense, but it kind of makes sense, especially for like wineries, or I guess U-Picks in a sense. I think for like new construction, if you intend on building something new and saying it is for agricultural, but then doing something else, kind of is like a way of getting around certain codes. So I think that's why a lot of this has happened recently, not just in our town. I think in our town it's for a different reason, but in other counties and in areas, I think that it was happening more and more, where people have come up with the idea of a wedding venue or an event venue and have been using that agricultural excuse to be able to put up a building and kind of get away with building inspections and fire codes and be able to, to deem themselves agricultural and then be able to have commercial events. So.
now how, I am curious, how would that work with grandfathering? Typically, when you change codes, people are grandfathered, but it sounds like that's not what the town is hoping to do. They're going to be trying to get these people to come in now and retroactively apply for these site plans?
That's my understanding, yes, that anyone who is currently falling into this definition, really it's a new use that's being defined and described. So it's a little different than like a structure or certain code changes that allow a non-conforming use to continue. I think in this case in particular, with an accessory use, it's different and challenging to track that, and, you know, how, even if you were to say, all of the accessory uses that fall into this definition are permitted to continue, come into the town and show us that you're a non-conforming pre-existing use, I think it would be very difficult to track that, as well as the scope, as well as, you know, there would have to be determinations made. And I point this out specifically because the fact that a farm venue event use is an accessory use is very important, because it means that it cannot become the principal use. It can't become greater and bigger and more income than the principal agricultural use.
And that's why we put time frame and how many events.
And that's ag and markets too.
And that's ag and market.
To limit the scope.
I believe that the code enforcement officer presented cease and desist to some of the local venues around here, and to rectify that was to come to the planning board for site plan review.
Yeah, but we didn't have an expedited site plan
Yeah.
review, and so that was unfair to them too, to have to come in.
I guess that goes to another reason why this wouldn't be a pre-existing non-conforming use, is because it was not in conformance with the code, was the finding of the code enforcement officer, is that those accessory uses were not in conformance, which is why he issued cease and desist.
Yeah. Okay.
So here are the things that I'm gonna write up in this letter. The submission of the evidence that they are in the agricultural district, that's number one. All the board members agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
The question as to, for the town board to consider whether the 10 acreage limit is defensible. Everyone basically agrees with that. And then suggesting that they adhere to this Ulster County recommendation and find a way to streamline by having the building department look at certain applications rather than the planning board.
I'm just wondering, as you said, how they could do that, so I'm not sure if that is. Then I think that becomes very subjective, and we open ourselves up to the same difficulties that we have now.
Okay, so number 1 and 2, I'll come up with a draft and circulate to get your comments before bringing a final version for our meeting on July.
So the last thing I need to add was, I found this note for extension of fees. We currently, the town board has no extension fees, and because of the cost of our engineering attorney fees, it was suggested that half the cost of an application fee for every extension be added. This is in addition to the application and escrow fee. So I wanted to make sure we discuss this, and
This will be a recommendation we make to the town board.
yes, to the town board. Okay? Are you going to draft a letter, Jen? Oh, okay.
Then let's have a motion.
Can I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And what is it? What is it? Half of what?
Gotcha.
Extension fee.
Is there anything else before this board? Have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Nick? Second. All in favor?
Aye.